Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Jennifer stood on the platform waiting for the train, people scurrying back and forth. The woman looked curiously at the passengers to kill time. "Hey, beautiful!" She heard behind her and looked back. "Give me a pen. I'll tell you the truth about your fate." The beautiful gypsy woman, smiling welcomingly, extended her hand to Jennifer. Long, bright skirt to the ground, a colored shawl on her hips. Her hair, black as pitch, was carelessly tied back with a headscarf. Burning brown eyes gleamed mockingly, scrutinizing the stranger. "Don't be afraid of me. I'm a fourth-generation fortune teller. Everyone here knows me. Ask anyone. Everyone knows that Camille speaks only the truth." Jennifer did not believe the gypsy, but she gave her hand. The girl frowned her eyebrows, scrutinizing the lines on her palm, and then spoke. "I see a lot of grief in your life your husband was buried, but now you mourn him, waiting for you a good long road into the unknown. A lot of strangers will meet on your way. My golden one, a difficult fate awaits you. Just know that at the end of the road you will meet a man, kind, caring, and all will be well with you. Here you go." Jennifer held out the money. "I don't want the money. And you remember my words. Happiness is ahead of you." She picked up the hem of her skirt and walked down the platform. At last the train came on. Jennifer went to her seat and sat by the window. On the platform, people were saying goodbye. Someone was frantically checking to see if their belongings were in place. Her gaze caught a couple in love. Jennifer sighed. "I wonder what it would be like to love without fear." Just like that, not feeling like a thing in the hands of another person. The train moved, the platform left behind. "Your laundry." The conductor looked into the compartment, put the bag on the table and left, leaving the passenger alone. The woman made the bed and moved toward the window, the train taking Jennifer farther and farther away from her past life. Fields, forests, small villages flashed by. Dusk was approaching. Memories did not let her distract herself. She realized that there was nothing to be afraid of, but a chilling feeling of uncontrollable fear, for the umpteenth time, slowly spread through her body, in addition to her will, came to her heart, and squeezed it with a cold hand. A lump came to her throat, and it became difficult to breathe. In the dark window the woman, as in Java, saw the reflection of her husband's grinning face. She shrieked wildly, recoiled from the window, the compartment door opened, and a worried conductor appeared. "Woman, are you all right? I heard a scream." No. Jennifer struggled to catch her breath. "I'm fine. I just dozed off. I had a nightmare. I'm sorry I startled you." "Oh, I see. Do you need help? You don't have a face." "Thank you, I'm fine." "Well, if you need anything, call me." The door closed. The woman leaned back in the seat. Now she was afraid to look out the dark window. Afraid she might see her husband's face again. He was gone. Jennifer said aloud, "He's gone. I have nothing to fear." Still, she felt uncomfortable alone in the compartment, so she got up and went out into the corridor. People passed by her from time to time. Several times the conductor came running, the door of the neighboring compartment rolled back, a drunken man fell out into the corridor, looked at Jennifer with cloudy eyes, loosened up and swaggered. "Are you bored, beautiful? Come to me, the two of us more fun." The woman silently turned around and wanted to leave, but the man blocked the way. "What? Are you squeamish? You don't look like you've got the face for it." Jennifer pulled her head into her shoulders, looking at the stranger with animal horror. Then she raised her hands, covering her head as if protecting herself from a blow. "Well, Why don't you say something?" He grabbed her arm painfully, pulled her toward him. "Have you swallowed your tongue? Get your hands off her." A sharp voice of the conductor sounded above Jennifer's ear. "Quickly get out of my sight, unless you want me to call the police." "Oh, come on," the man retorted. "I was just kidding. I see a woman is bored. I think I'll brighten up her loneliness. She can't take a joke, can she?" Scared? The conductor looked at the passenger with interest. She ran away from her tyrant husband. "What makes you think so?" Jennifer asked in a trembling voice. "I've seen people like you, tormented by their husbands. Come to my place. I guess you need to talk. Can you read minds? If you traveled as much as I have, you'd know how to read books. My name is Lisa." "Jennifer." "Come on in." The conductor showed me the seat across the hall. "Make yourself comfortable. We'll have tea." "I don't want to sit alone either. My shiftman is resting." She stopped talking, deftly poured the tea into glasses, not paying attention to the slight swaying of the carriage. "So tell me, where are you running to?" "I'm running from the past." Jennifer put both hands around the glass with hot tea. "You're right. My husband is a real tyrant. Only he's been dead for over 6 months. What are you afraid of then?" Lisa wondered. "I've never lived any other way. All the years I was married, I was shaking with fear. Why did you marry such a monster? I wouldn't have done it myself." Bitterly, the woman grinned. "My father made me." "Do they marry against one's will today?" "In my opinion, people marry for love alone. If you are born into a rich family and are the only heiress, no one will allow you to marry someone you choose. For my father, business interests come first, second, and third, and then feelings." "Wow," the conductor exclaimed thoughtfully. "I would run away from such a father. It would be useless. They would find him, bring him back, and still I would have to marry the one my father appointed. What kind of life is life with someone you don't love?" "A living hell." Jennifer closed her eyes. "Daughter?" The father met Jennifer returning from the institute. "There's someone I want you to meet." He escorted her into the living room. "This is Jacob, a very promising young man, will be a wonderful husband for you and my assistant. God didn't give me an heir, and I can't trust you with the business. A woman should take care of the house, not count numbers. Let Jacob do it better." The girl looked at the groom. He was handsome, tall, well-built, well-dressed. Anyone would have married him, but Jennifer's heart was full. She saw that this young man was interested in her father's money, and she herself was just a supplement to a successful business. The matter was already settled, and a month later the young people were married. Why did I agree to marry him? Jennifer thought, after her first intimacy with her husband. He did his thing, and now he sleeps without hind legs. Is that how it's supposed to be? No tenderness, no respect, no love at all. The woman got up, went to the kitchen. "Jennifer, sit down at the table. I've prepared delicious, as you like, pancakes with jam." The housekeeper was bustling about the kitchen. "Thank you, Clara." Jennifer had no appetite, but not to offend the caring woman, she ate a batch of pancakes and drank some coffee. "Why didn't you wake me up?" Jacob snapped at his young wife, entering the kitchen half-dressed. The woman wrinkled her nose. It wasn't customary in their family to show up in front of the servants like this. "I'm late for work, and the table is not set. I'm used to a thick breakfast. What are you doing out here?" "Put it on the table. Clara will serve." Jennifer said calmly, "Why are you here?" A wife should serve her husband breakfast, not a stranger's aunt. Remember, I won't say it a second time. He looked at his wife and sat down at the table. The housekeeper served breakfast and left. "Jacob, do not make remarks to me in front of the servants." Jennifer asked. "What?" He got mad. "Are you going to tell me what to do?" And the man slapped her across the face. Jennifer fell from her chair to the floor in surprise. Jacob leaned over, grabbed her by the hair, turned her to face him and hissed, "Don't you dare cross me, do you understand? A woman to teach me to be smart? I won't stand for it." It was a warning. He shushed her and went back to his breakfast as if nothing had happened. "Why didn't you tell your father?" The stewardess was surprised. "I don't know. I thought maybe he was right about something. It is not difficult for me to serve the table, and I know how to cook, and I understand that he is unpleasant to my remark. My father didn't like it when I pointed out his mistakes, but he never laid a finger on me and Jacob." Jennifer sank back into her memories. "I'm going to be late today," as if by the way, my husband said, "to celebrate the beginning of my married life." He got up from the table, lifted his wife to her feet, ran his thumb over her lips, smearing the blood. "I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself." He kissed her broken lips. The woman grimaced in pain. "Clean yourself up, and don't tell your father. He won't believe you. Bye, love." He patted her cheek, then got dressed and left. Jennifer, unable to hold back her tears, couldn't control her trembling. "Jennifer, baby, what's wrong?" The housekeeper rushed to her. "It's nothing, I just had a bad fall." The housekeeper refused to help. "I'll wash my face and you'll be fine." She went into the bedroom, stood in front of the mirror for a long time, trying to stop her tears. Then she made the bed and lay down on top of the covers, curled up and fell silent. Her broken lip hurt, and her head was noisy. Here we are on the first day of married life, and what's next? Jennifer thought. It's because he doesn't love me, but I don't love him either. We can learn to respect each other. I will definitely talk to Jacob. I will not tolerate this kind of treatment, she said firmly to herself. She fell asleep. It was already evening when the woman opened her eyes. Her husband was still not at home, although the working day was long over. She dialed her husband's phone number and listened to the long beeps for a long time. He never answered. Jennifer wandered aimlessly around the house, not knowing what to do. Near midnight, she heard a car pull up. She looked out the window and saw her husband getting out of the cab, barely able to stand, followed by two girls. Jacob kissed each of them, said something goodbye, and went into the house. "Jacob, I was worried. Why didn't you pick up the phone? Why did you arrive in the company of girls? Are you going to make a complaint against me?" The man stopped, staggered, looked at his wife with cloudy eyes. "Who are you?" "A gray mouse who can't satisfy a man. I want vivid sex, not a snow queen in bed. You didn't answer your phone?" "Because the music in the club was loud." "Is that it? Any other questions?" "No." "Then I'm going to bed." He staggered into the bedroom and collapsed on the bed without undressing. "Don't forget to wake me up tomorrow. I got your father's ass kicked today. At your mercy." Jacob mumbled something else, but Jennifer couldn't make it out. She looked sadly at the man her father had appointed as her husband. That night she slept in the study on the couch. The next morning, as Jacob was getting ready for work, the doorbell rang, and her husband rushed to open it. Jennifer came out into the living room to see the early visitor. "Honey, I thought I'd do you a favor." A surprise. The man handed her a bouquet that had been delivered by a courier. "Forgive me for yesterday. I behaved like a cattle." He theatrically knelt down, wrapped his arms around Jennifer's legs. "Will you forgive me? Please don't be angry with me." "And you have forgiven?" the conductor asked indignantly. "I have," Jennifer sighed. "Oh, what fools we women are! You should have run away from him." That first time, I truly believed in his remorse. The family was at peace for a while. We even went on a wedding trip. Jacob was so alert, affectionate, gave flowers almost every day, beautifully cared for. I gradually calmed down. I thought that his behavior was due to the forced marriage imposed on him. A nervous breakdown turned out. I can hardly believe that everything suddenly got better. The woman smirked. "Otherwise, you would not have run away." "We have not yet started anything. Except for mistresses, my husband opened another passion, gambling. I want to show you a cozy place." Smiling enigmatically, Jacob stopped the car in front of an unassuming building. At the entrance stood two sturdy young men in black suits. Now and then cars drove up. People came out and looked around, trying to quickly hide behind the heavy iron doors. "Where are we?" Jennifer asked with interest. "Let's go. We can't linger here, so as not to draw attention to ourselves." He pulled her with him. A minute later, they entered the small hall of the underground casino. The croupier was taking bets. The people at the tables were talking quietly, drinking. Some were rubbing their hands together, some, upset at losing, were pouring wine over their grief, looking enviously at the lucky ones. "You're not going to gamble, are you?" Jennifer asked cautiously. "What's the matter with you?" Her husband looked at her guiltily. "I'm going to be lucky today. I can feel it. Daddy won't like that you're playing. We won't tell him." He winked at her conspiratorially. "Sometimes you can have a little fun. It's a big game, and if you're lucky, you can make a lot of money. And if you're not lucky, I don't play for big money, just for fun. Have you noticed the people around us? You can make very useful acquaintances, and notice how almost all of them have wives. I don't like it here. Don't be a prude. Let's play a game and go, relax, have fun." At first, Jacob was lucky. He was as happy as a child. "Jacob, let's go home. Enough already. Don't interfere." My husband snapped at me. "This is a chance to get a good win. I'm lucky today." He put everything on the line and lost. "It's your fault," said the man, watching as his money, the croupier, raked to another man. "You prevented me from concentrating, scared away the luck." Jacob rose from the table, turned to his wife, grabbed her arm painfully, and shook her so that the woman involuntarily shrieked and tears appeared in her eyes. Immediately the guards ran up. "Man, we ask you to leave the hall. You don't have to make a fight here. Go home and find out who's to blame." They called a cab. "I'm not going home." The man said when the car stopped, "I need to calm down. Don't wait up. I'm not coming home tonight." "But Jacob?" A frustrated Jennifer tried to object. Her husband pushed her out of the car and slammed the door shut. "We wanted to." She didn't finish, and the cab sped off. Jacob came in the morning, drunk, smelling of someone else's perfume, and went straight to bed. Jennifer couldn't sleep for a long time, crying. "Can you explain where you were?" Jennifer asked when her husband opened his eyes. "At the club. Give me some water. I feel sick." The woman picked up the glass. "How are you going to show up to work like that?" "I'll be fresh as a cucumber in half an hour while you make breakfast." "Jacob?" Not boldly, the woman asked, "Do you have a mistress?" "Yes," the man answered calmly. "She's very hot. So maybe we should get a divorce." "No, I can't divorce you." Jacob sobered up immediately. He knew that divorce was not favorable to him. "If I get a divorce, I'll be pantsless. The business, the money, the real estate is in my wife's hands. My father's got it. I'll have to be more cautious. But William trusts me. I have nothing to fear." Confident of his own impunity, The man continued to harass his wife. "I need you. We're good together, aren't we?" He came up to his wife, stroked her hair, and suddenly grabbed it painfully. "Don't make me angry," he said threateningly. "If you talk about divorce again, I'll lock you in the house, and you can't go anywhere without my permission. Do you understand?" He shook her. "Where's my breakfast? I'm already late." Jennifer hurried into the kitchen, wiping away tears on the way. She was afraid of her own husband. She didn't know what to expect from him. "I'd tell my father if I were you. He'd wipe him off the face of the earth." I tried to talk to him. Sadly, Jennifer reported, it was no use. He said it was all my womanizing, that I was saying bad things about a good man. I to him, he does not love me, and he to me, the family is kept on prosperity and good attitude to each other. Are there many people you know who married for love and kept the marriage alive? He judges him as a partner. He laughed at my suspicions that Jacob has a mistress. He said that any man cheats on his wife at least once in his life, as long as it does not affect the business. I hope he was smart enough not to bring mistresses into your house. Well, I did, and then, Jennifer returned home from the store on her way to visit her parents in the cemetery. When she got to the house, she saw a strange car in the yard. Are we having company? She thought. Strange, Jacob hadn't warned her. And why at this hour, with the workday in full swing? Puzzled, she opened the door and realized there was more than just a guest. From the threshold, women's clothes were strewn across the living room. Jennifer went up to the bedroom, stood at the door, hesitating to open it. She already guessed what she would see there. A feeling of humiliation came over her head, but she made an effort and pushed the door open. "Jacob, what's going on here?" the woman asked. "Don't you see?" swaggeringly replied the husband. Next to them in their marital bed, a blonde woman, wearing makeup, was lying on the bed, defiantly displaying her naked body. "Why are you here so early?" "Get out of here," he bellowed, and the girl giggled. "Don't you want to explain anything?" "Why is that woman in our bed?" "Because she's my favorite." He kissed the stranger vigorously on the lips. "Woman, look how appetizing she is." He slapped his mistress cheerfully on the buttock. "Not like you. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror for a long time?" "Stop staring at us. Come out. We'll get dressed." Jennifer, numbed by the disgusting scene, could not move from her seat. Then she found the strength and went out. Laughter was heard behind her back. She cried without restraint, went to the study, fell on the sofa, and cried until she fell asleep. I woke up in the evening. The house was quiet. Suddenly, a sensitive ear caught the voice of her husband. He was talking to someone on the phone. The woman listened. "Don't be so hot. I cannot break up with her. Understand, we will be left without money if I file for divorce. There's only one way out." Jennifer froze, afraid to move, to find herself. Yes, she's asleep. Jacob convinced someone. She won't. We have to make it look natural. If it turns out she didn't die by accident, I get nothing. Find someone reliable. Jennifer went cold. Is he going to kill me? She covered her mouth with her hands to keep from screaming in terror. No, he couldn't. He wouldn't dare. And if he did, what would he do? Father won't believe it. He'll say I'm lying to him again. All right, I've got to calm down. She told herself to calm down. I have to find out if I'm in real danger. Maybe I should go to the police. What can I charge them with? It's a vicious circle. She paced the office in despair, not knowing what to do. Everything was quiet in the living room. The woman was grateful to her husband that he did not go to her after he drove the mistress out. She didn't even want to see him. I mustn't show that I know what he's planning. She decided to herself. I'll try to act normal. I'll figure something out. I'll try to be careful. She didn't sleep much that night. In the morning, she set the table as usual, but did not go out to see her husband. He didn't make an attempt to see her either. She waited until Jacob left for work and sat down at the computer. She wanted to know what kind of gal was claiming to be the mistress of the house. As she searched social media, the phone rang. "Jennifer?" An unfamiliar voice asked. "Yes," the woman answered in surprise. "Who are you?" "I'm Dr. Parker. Your husband, Jacob, was brought to our clinic. He collapsed at work. We performed an examination. We have some bad news for you. Your husband has an inoperable brain tumor." "What?" Jennifer screamed. "He's never complained about anything. That can't be. Maybe he didn't pay attention to trifling symptoms like dizziness, headaches. Maybe he said he was seeing double. I don't know. I can't remember. What do we do? He'll be in our clinic for a while, but we can't keep him here much longer. Isn't there anything we can do? I'm sorry." "Courage, I sympathize with you. What if we send him abroad? We have enough money to pay for his treatment. It's your right to send him there, but it's useless. Only a miracle will help him." The man on the other end of the line was silent. "You can come and see him. He's conscious now. We've ordered a course of therapy. The tumor will progress. I find it hard to say how quickly the disease will do its work. Maybe a year or two. I sympathize, but alas, medicine is powerless in this case." Jennifer refused to believe what she was hearing. She couldn't believe that a man who had recently been blooming and cheerful would suddenly turn into an infirm patient. She quickly packed and drove to the hospital. She was uncomfortable with the surroundings. She was forced to put on a gown, shoe covers, a mask, even a bonnet. Sterility reigned all around. Trying to keep her anxious heart from racing, Jennifer entered the room. "Jacob?" She called softly to her husband. He opened his eyes and looked at her as if he didn't recognize her. "It's me, Jennifer. How are you?" "You've always been a fool," her husband replied stiffly. "And now you're asking a stupid question. What?" His eyes became prickly. "Are you happy now? It was me who had to get rid of you. Don't tell me that God has punished me for my evil intentions." "Why?" He clutched the sheet with his hands. "Why me? Why not you, you worthless, useless creature? I thought now that your father was finally gone, I could live the life I wanted, not with you, but with the woman I loved, and here. I want to live. I have so many plans for the future." He started banging his head against the pillow, tears spilling from his eyes. "Calm down. I'm sure you'll like you. You'll lie down for a while, and then you'll go back to work. Medicine has advanced. You'll be fine, but don't despair. Are you trying to make me feel better? Do you have no self-respect? I humiliated you your whole life. I cheated on you, and you feel sorry for me? Go away. I can't stand to see you. I'm sick of you. I don't need your pity." He turned away from her. Jennifer stood for a while and then left the room. After treatment, Jacob returned to work, but then went back to the hospital. He was no longer able to run the business, so he had to hire a manager. His wife took care of Jacob, fulfilled his every whim, but he tried to make her life a living hell. "Jacob, I brought you something to eat." Jennifer rolled the table to the bed. The man was having trouble getting around the house. He had to hire a nurse, but the wife still cooked. Her husband insisted. She put the tray on his lap. "Why, is everything cold again?" Jacob said irritably, "How many times do I have to tell you that I like my coffee hot?" He dropped the tray on the floor. Why are you doing that?" The woman looked at him reproachfully. "I may have a few months or weeks to live, and you can't even serve me hot coffee. Get out of the bedroom. I want to be alone." Jennifer picked up the dishes from the floor and wanted to leave. "No one called me?" "No," she answered. "You women are such assholes. As soon as a person feels bad, you turn your backs on them. You only want the healthy and rich. No one needs a sick person." The woman silently left the room. She knew why her husband was angry. His mistress had not called or come for a long time. Jennifer tried not to leave her husband alone. There was no telling what might happen. One day she had to go away on business and stayed a little longer. When she returned, she realized that there were strangers in the bedroom. She could hear laughter and music outside the door. She entered the bedroom and was taken aback. In the bed, on either side of her husband, lay half-naked girls. They held glasses of champagne in their hands and took turns drinking their lover. They were eating strawberries and chocolate. Empty bottles and clothes were lying on the floor. "Oh, you're here." Stretching the words, Jacob said, "and here we are with the girls having fun. You see, for money, even with the terminally ill agree to lie in bed, and you refuse to sleep with your lawful husband. What am I supposed to do?" "Get these girls out of here." Jennifer replied calmly. "Honey," asked one of the guests, "who's that?" "Don't tell me it's the wife." "She is." The sick man grinned. "But she won't get in our way." He squeezed both girls by the waist, but his strength left him immediately, his forehead covered with sweat. The girls looked fearfully at the suddenly pale man. "You'd better leave, unless you want him to die from your tenderness right now." Jennifer, folding her arms across her chest, indifferently watched as the uninvited guests hurriedly gathered their things. "Who's going to pay the money?" "Whoever used it will pay." Jennifer looked angrily at her husband. He silently pointed to the nightstand, where a few bills were lying around. The girls grabbed the money, and they were immediately blown away. "Don't you get bored?" "Can't I do something nice for myself?" Jacob snapped at her. "Have you forgotten that I have one foot in the grave? I want to live my last days to the fullest, and you will not forbid me. Why did you decide to leave? You could have lived in the house and not thought about anything." "I couldn't live in that house. I had too many unpleasant memories of it. I wanted a fresh start. At my husband's funeral, I felt relieved, as if all my fears had been put into the grave together with the coffin. At that moment, I decided I was going to start my life from scratch. I left the business to the manager who worked for my father, and I put the house up for sale." The woman stopped talking. "I'll go. I've been talking about you." She smiled embarrassedly and stood up. "Thank you for listening. It really did make me feel better." Jennifer opened the window, and the air, lush with the green of the countryside, rushed into the compartment. She put her hands on the table, and her wedding ring glistened under the light of the compartment lamp. The woman resolutely grabbed it, pulled it, took it off, and threw it out the open window. With a sigh of relief, she smiled. "With family life, I said goodbye forever." She said out loud, "I can't believe I don't have to be afraid of anything anymore." 10 years of fear and despair, realizing that no one could help me. Now that's it. I'm rich and free. She was talking about herself. The farther away the train took her, the calmer she felt. Jennifer lay down and, lulled by the clatter of the wheels, fell into a restless sleep. She saw her husband again, physically felt his presence, and shuddered, frightened to wake up. When I opened my eyes, I realized it was only a dream and sank back into reverie. Jennifer woke up suddenly. She was awakened by the slamming of the front door. She squirmed inwardly. She heard her husband stomping into the kitchen. There was the clink of a broken glass. "Why don't you greet your husband?" The door to the room opened, and the woman squinted against the bright light. Jacob, staggering drunkenly, walked to his wife's bed and pulled the blanket off her. "Pour me some tea," he ordered. Jennifer, shuddering with fear, stood up, threw a robe over her shoulders, and wanted to slip past her husband, but he managed to grab her arm, pulled her toward him, pressed her down, did not let her escape, and buried himself in her lips. He reeked of cognac and cigarettes. The woman looked away in disgust. Disgusted? He laughed drunkenly. "I don't care about you." The man gripped her hair painfully. "Let go," Jennifer demanded, "or else what?" He mockingly looked her straight in the eye. "What are you going to do to me?" He pushed her to the floor and kicked her. "How I hate you and your daddy. If it wasn't for business, I'd never have married you. I have no luck in life. I have an unloved wife, and I lost at the casino, and it's all your fault." He kicked his wife again. She covered her head with her hands. "You don't realize how humiliating it is to ask for money. I was hoping that all your inheritance will go into my hands. But no, nothing. There'll be a party on my street, too. Why are you lying here? Get up, I asked for tea." Jennifer crawled away from her husband's legs and struggled to get to her feet. Her whole body ached, but she forbade herself to cry, knew that tears would bring Jacob in even greater frenzy. These scenes were repeated with enviable regularity. The woman also knew that on the morrow, having slept through, he would come to apologize. And so it happened. The next evening Jacob returned from work satisfied. "Honey, I'm home." Cheerfully he spoke, solemnly, carrying a bouquet of flowers in front of him. "Sorry for yesterday. I did not hold back, but today I won. Can you imagine?" He took out a weighty wad of money from his pocket and, waving it in front of his wife's nose, laughed merrily. "I won." He tossed the bills up, and they fell smoothly to the floor. The man grabbed his wife, whirled her around the room. She wrinkled her nose, the bruises hurt. Noticing the reflection of that pain in Jennifer's eyes, he set her on her feet, then knelt down in front of her and spoke guiltily. "Did I do that to you yesterday? I can't help myself. I'm sorry. Would you stop playing?" Tiredly said the woman, "Dad doesn't know where his money goes, but if he finds out, you'll be in trouble. Do you feel sorry for them?" The husband got angry. "Don't I work? I'm entitled to that money. But you lose a lot. So what? I'm tired. I need to relieve myself. You're always badgering me about money. Have you forgotten that I didn't marry you willingly, and you're giving me a hard time about it?" "No." Jennifer looked fearfully at her husband. "I only ask you not to play. We can soon be without money. You spend more than we have time to earn. Did my stupid wife learn to count money?" Jacob asked mockingly. His eyes suddenly became angry and prickly. Jennifer inwardly shrank. This look did not bode well. "Don't tell me what to do." He swung around and hit her. "Don't you dare talk to me about money." Jennifer rushed into the office and closed the door. "Open it now. I haven't told you everything yet." He started banging on the door. The woman woke up. There was indeed a knock on the door. She breathed a sigh of relief. It was only a dream. Thank God it was only a dream. The clatter of the train's wheels, soothingly, had a calming effect on her. "Jennifer, good morning." The conductor stopped by. "Your station's in an hour." "Yes, thank you very much for waking me up," the woman said, shaking off the remnants of sleep. "Come on, I've made tea." "Okay, right away, thank you." Jennifer stood up, styling her thick hair, sadly, looking at herself in the mirror. "Nothing," she said to her reflection. "We'll get through this. I have an education. It's good that I insisted and graduated from the institute. I didn't make a medical doctor, but my knowledge of accounting will come in handy. I can even afford not to work for a while." The woman wagged her finger. "Don't relax." Half an hour later, she was already sitting in the conductor's compartment. "Where are you going now?" The female conductor was watching her with interest. "I'll look around, I'll look for an apartment, and then I'll get a job. I have to start somewhere. Things will get better, you'll see." "What did the gypsy tell you?" "She promised happiness. It will be, believe me." "My happiness is lost somewhere," Jennifer thought, warming herself with hot tea. "Paul, where are you? You must be married. Why are you so sad? You should be happy that fate has freed you from bondage." "I am happy. It's just the unknown that scares me. I've gotten used to having everything decided for me, first by my father, then by my husband. Now I have to learn independence all over again." She returned to her room, packed her things, and said a warm goodbye to the conductor and got off at the station. Jennifer stepped out onto the platform, looked around, and realized that the whole world was now open to her. Where to start? The woman thought, slowly walking in the stream of passengers. How to live further at all? That's it. I won't dig into the past anymore. I have turned the page. There is no turning back. I have to learn to live in the present. And first of all, I have to get an apartment. "Excuse me?" She went to the information desk. "Can I have the address of a real estate agency, please?" "Please." A pretty girl immediately gave out the address. Jennifer stopped the cab and a few minutes later entered the office indicated in the address. "Hello," she greeted. "Hello." Smiled back at her a middle-aged woman, well-groomed in a strict suit. "Have a seat. What do you want? To buy a place or maybe to rent?" "Rent." "Great." The woman was happy. "Are you alone or with family?" "Alone." "What would you like?" "I need a small apartment for the first time, a 2-room apartment in the center of the city for a long term." "Downtown? But it's pretty expensive." The realtor gave her an appraising look. Jennifer, dressed in a light, plain jacket with a t-shirt and jeans peeking out from underneath, didn't seem to inspire confidence in her ability to pay. "Do you have enough money to pay for your accommodation?" "Don't worry. I know roughly the rates, and I can afford to rent anywhere in the city." The realtor raised an eyebrow incredulously, but did not object. "You're lucky." The woman smiled. "I just have in mind such an apartment a small, cozy, clean, old lady rents. She left for 6 months to her daughter in England." "Really?" She grinned. "She has exaggerated requirements. That's why no one has rented the apartment so far, but I think you just fit her parameters. First of all, don't bring any noisy company into the apartment. The neighbors keep a very close eye on the tenants. I'm just warning you in case you're thinking of breaking the rules. Don't worry, I don't know anyone here. No bad habits, I hope?" "Ha ha." "That's right. And I don't see any animals around either, do you?" "No animals." "Oh, well." The woman looked at her client with satisfaction. "It's like this apartment was waiting for you. Can we see it now?" "Ah, sure." The realtor stood up, took the papers with her. "Let's go. And if you're satisfied, we'll sign the contract right away. Payment is due 3 months in advance. I'm in." Jennifer was pleased with what she saw. "I'd like it," she said as she walked around the rooms. "Give me the papers and I'll sign them." That's it. The realtor checked the contract again, handed the woman the keys, and handed her the money. "Get settled in. Remember the rules. If you have any questions or want to change your home, call." She held out her business card. "It's a pleasure doing business with you." Jennifer closed the door behind her and walked through the rooms, organizing her things. She looked in the kitchen. The refrigerator is empty. I'll go to the store. I have to eat something, she decided. When Jennifer returned, the first thing she did was to clean up. Apparently, the apartment had been without a mistress for a long time, so it was dusty. The woman enjoyed tidying up. She sometimes had unpleasant thoughts, but she chased them away. Jennifer turned on the TV, and under its monotonous purring, cheerfully engaged in business. Finally, the apartment was sparkling clean. Jennifer looked around and hummed with satisfaction. Well, it was a tolerable place to live. It wasn't the house I was used to, but it was my own and away from the memories, and now it was time for a little snack. She went into the kitchen and began to prepare lunch. Cooking was time-consuming, but Jennifer knew she had nowhere to rush. Soon she was tired but satisfied, happily eating soup and potatoes baked with chicken. In the meantime, the kettle boiled, the woman made tea, and took out hot, fragrant donuts from the bag. How much I adore you! She took a bite and, squeezing her eyes shut, slowly began to savor the brown pastry. At last I could eat them without being caught red-handed by my husband. She grew sad. Jennifer ate breakfast alone. Jacob hadn't returned from his business trip yet, so the woman had bought hot donuts for herself. She just loved them. The front door slammed. Jennifer froze in bewilderment. Jacob? But he wasn't due back until tonight. You weren't expecting him. Jacob smirked, entering the kitchen, and I decided to arrive early to see what the wife was doing while her husband wasn't home. I'm having breakfast. She tried to hide her hand with the donut behind her back. What are you hiding? The husband came to the table. Are you eating donuts again? He said irritably when he saw the bag of pastries on the table. I told you not to eat them. You don't realize that soon your figure will turn into a shapeless mass. But I'm only in the morning, justified the woman. It won't be a big deal. I'll go to the gym. Don't you have anything to do at home? Only to go to the gym. He grabbed the bag and threw it in the trash. I forbid you to eat them. I'll be embarrassed to show up at the reception with you if you get fat. Jennifer had listened to him then, and it seemed to her that he was certainly right about something. Now, sitting in someone else's apartment, Jennifer could afford to eat whatever she wanted. What kind of life is this? She asked herself. If you constantly deny yourself little pleasures. Thought, I think I'm full. Jennifer moaned, leaning back in her chair. She cleared the table, washed the dishes, and went to the bedroom. In her bed, not alive, not dead, the woman waited until the unknown man stepped into the darkness of the hallway and smashed him over the head with a vase, screaming loudly. The man cried out in surprise, but did not fall, only staggered, crouched down, and grabbed his head. Noticing Jennifer, who froze in place, horrified, looking at the stranger who had invaded the apartment, indignantly asked, "Who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing here? How did you get in here? Are you a thief?" He suddenly grabbed her arms. "Who are you?" Jennifer parried. She was desperate. "Don't touch me. Let me go now. You're hurting me. I have nothing." "Don't yell. You'll wake up the neighbors. Take your hands off me. Let me go immediately. Help me. Somebody help me." The man grabbed her by the waist and pulled her against him, preventing her from breaking free. The woman fought back as best she could. Images flashed through her mind, one more terrifying than the other. "It's a maniac. He's going to rape me and kill me. God, why am I being punished like this?" In the darkness, she couldn't see her attacker, but her instinct for self-preservation kicked in. Unable to break free from the man's strong embrace, Jennifer clawed at the stranger's face with her fingernails and scratched it. "What did you do, bitch?" The man roared in pain and let go of his victim's grip, clutching his face. Taking advantage of her assailant's interference, the woman rushed out of the apartment. "I don't remember myself from fear," ran down the stairs, jumped out of the entrance. "Help! Help!" she shouted to attract the attention of passers-by. Like a mad woman barefoot, in her pajamas, she ran, not seeing the road, and jumped out on the roadway. The brakes squealed. Jennifer, as in a slow-motion movie, saw the car coming at her, the blinding light of the headlights. The driver's eyes widened with horror. She raised her arms in fear, trying to protect herself from the imminent collision. The violent impact threw her like a rag doll to the curb. The last thing she saw was the dark night sky above her head. A crowd immediately gathered around her. Someone called an ambulance. A policeman bent over the victim. "Who is she? Does anyone know her?" She didn't even have any ID on her. Where was she going? You saw her, didn't you? Did you see her run out into the road? The driver whose car hit the woman was justifying himself. "I didn't have time to brake. I tried to, but she just jumped out of the way. I didn't have time to react. She was crazy." A few minutes later, an ambulance was taking Jennifer to the clinic. Paul could still hear her melodious laughter. A soft smile appeared before his eyes at times, and his fingers could still feel the soft, velvety softness of her skin. The supple curls of her luxurious hair came to mind, and he thought he even remembered the smell of her perfume. "Jennifer?" he whispered reluctantly, parting from the night vision. The man woke up, but lay in bed for a long time, reliving over and over again his dream, which repeated itself almost every night. It had been more than 10 years since life had taken him and Jennifer in different directions, but he had never for a moment forgotten his love. The pain of the breakup, lately, was making itself known more and more often. He remembered every detail of their first meeting. "Mom, Dad," Paul joyfully announced, entering the apartment. "I've passed the competition. Can you imagine? I got in on a budget." He grabbed his mother, who had come out into the hallway, and whirled her around. "I got my way the most prestigious medical school." "Son." "Laughing?" exclaimed Christina. "Let me go." "Oh, even dizzy." "Father, our son is such a clever boy." "Good, good, son," said the father. "We'll have our own doctor in the house in our old age, and you, mother, let's quickly gather the table. We need to celebrate this case. We have a present for you." The woman looked enigmatically at her son. Half an hour later, they were sitting at the table. Paul loved such meetings with his parents. He was grateful to them for being able to put him on his feet. The young man never complained about the lack of wealth in their family. On his mother's teacher's salary and the little money his engineer father received, they managed to fulfill any requests of their son and also saved up to buy a dacha. But Paul never asked for more than they could give him. "Son," solemnly announced the father, "my mother and I thought about it and decided to buy you a car." "Parents?" Paul gasped. "You dreamed of it so much. Mom, what about your beds and garden? We lived without it, and we will live without it. You need the car more. Maybe you'll give us a ride too." He laughed. "Get your mother's papers." "Here, Paul." Christina gave her son the documents and keys. "This is our father, and me a gift for your enrollment in the institute. You have dreamed of becoming a doctor since childhood, and now the first step is made." "The car, of course, simple." Embarrassed father said, "But you have to learn something, right? When you become a famous doctor and buy whatever you want, for the first time, and so it will do." "Thank you." Paul was so excited, he didn't even know what to say. He understood what this purchase had cost his parents, and then he decided for himself that he would definitely finish the institute and become a good doctor. On the first school day, he was late for a lecture. The teacher had not yet come up, but the seats in the auditorium were almost all occupied. Each incoming person was scrutinized by those present. In order not to attract much attention to himself, Paul sat on the edge, next to a girl who was writing something concentratedly. Her face was covered with curls of thick blonde hair. "Are you free?" he asked. "Yes, please," answered the stranger, raising from her notes bottomless blue eyes which burned through his heart. "I'm lost," thought the young man, lost speech from the beautiful eyes of the girl. "My name is Paul." Lowering on the seat, the young man introduced himself. He was surprised at his boldness. Usually he was shy in front of girls. "My name is Jennifer." The girl carefully wrote down every word of the lecture, and Paul could not concentrate next to the beauty. In every free minute he looked at Jennifer. He liked everything about her, from the curls on her temples to her little snub nose. "I don't want to be intrusive," Paul offered when the class was over. "But can I give you a ride home?" "I wouldn't say no." Jennifer blushed. "Did you want to come here on your own? Or did your parents make you do it?" Paul drove confidently. "I did. I decided a long time ago that I wanted to heal people, but my dad didn't like my choice." "Why not?" "He wants me to study economics or law. Somewhere abroad, we'd have our own business. My parents dreamed of a son, but I was born. My dad sleeps and dreams that one day I'll take his place. And how did they take it when you went to medical school?" "It was like something else." Dad thundered and thundered. He said he wouldn't pay for my studies if I went against my family, but I got in on a budget and they had to put up with it. I also dreamed of becoming a doctor from childhood. My parents were happy that I got in. I'm already here." "With regret," said the girl. "Too bad." Paul looked at the girl sadly. "I don't want to part with you. See you tomorrow." The girl blushed. Feeling the guy's gaze on her, she liked him. "See you tomorrow." Young people quickly became close and could not live without each other even a day. Barely parting at the girl's house, they called each other in half an hour and talked as if they hadn't seen each other for a week. "Paul," Jennifer whispered, "I miss you already. My parents think I'm asleep. Can you imagine how surprised they'd be if they knew I was talking to you on the phone? I miss you too. I lie in bed and imagine kissing your lips, your ear, your nose. I love you with all my heart, my darling. I don't know how I ever lived without you. I think with horror, if I hadn't gone to medical school, you and I would never have met." "We did," Paul said with conviction. "We are two halves of the same whole, and halves just have to meet. You're making things up." The girl laughed. That way they could talk all night long. "Jennifer," the boy announced one day, "my parents want to meet you. Would you mind having lunch with us on Saturday? Thanks for the invitation." The girl was embarrassed. "I'd love to meet them." On Saturday, Paul stopped by with Jennifer. The girl was nervous. "Calm down." Noticing her excitement, Paul said, "My parents are simple people. They will like you. They have no class prejudices." "Mom, Dad, this is Jennifer." Holding the girl's hand tightly, the boy spoke. When the parents came out to meet them in the hallway, "Nice to meet you." The parents looked at each other, immediately feeling sympathy for the girl. Jennifer felt like she belonged to this simple and friendly family. She visited them often, and Paul's parents smiled at their son's first love. "I'm happy for Paul," said the father. "I wish he hadn't thought of getting married now." Sighed the mother, waiting for her son's return from a date in the evening. "What are you imagining?" Her father reassured her. Look how well they both study. Let them love each other. Our son's first love, let them enjoy life. Remember us, we got married as students too. As long as we finish college, then we can think about getting married. She's a nice girl from a good family. Beautiful, but also smart and determined. The other in her place would have long ago snatched a guy. And this is a good girl. Paul does not distract from studies. It's a good couple. The kids are happy. And what more do we parents need? The girl's parents had a very different view of Paul. Dad? Jennifer made an announcement. I want you to meet someone. Who's that? The father was wary. There's a really nice guy studying with me. Paul, we're dating. I'd like to invite him over to our house. Would you mind? Who's Paul? The father asked angrily. I hope I know his parents. I don't think so. The daughter laughed. He comes from a simple family. Mom is a teacher and Dad is an engineer. I've been there before. I liked it. Are you out of your mind? You want me to marry my daughter off to some engineer's son. You want my competitors to laugh at me? Dad, you want your daughter to be happy, don't you? That's what I care about. That's why I won't let some Paul become part of our family. You wouldn't dare do that to me. Jennifer looked at her father indignantly. Then I have nothing to say to you. I will still marry Paul even if you don't want me to. The father, imperious and strict, recognizing the feelings of his only child, categorically ordered, Jennifer, put that nonsense out of your mind. I don't want a son-in-law who hasn't earned a penny in his life, and his parents are penniless intellectuals. Forget about him. I have big plans for you, especially for your marriage. I've already taken care of everything. Dad, what are you talking about? In tears, Jennifer looked pleadingly at her father. What am I, a bargaining chip? Can't you think of anything else besides business? I love Paul, but I'm not getting married yet. I have 4 more years of school. If you marry well, you won't need to study. Father cut me off. With a good, well-to-do husband, you won't need to work. That's how your mother, God rest her soul, stayed at home all her life, took care of you and herself, and did not need anything. I made sure you both had a good life. She never complained about anything. But you loved each other. The girl shouted. No one forced you to marry, and what are you offering me? Sell myself for more money? Even so. I care about your welfare. The business must develop. Is this Paul the one who's going to make it grow? No, of course not. He'll waste it on charity, and that's not why I built my empire. So listen to your father and do as I say. And forget about the institute. I shouldn't have let you go there in the first place. But I want to be a doctor. I want to treat people. You know it's been my dream since I was a kid. Don't you have any sympathy for me? What am I going to do sitting at home? This conversation is over. Dad said, losing his temper. Soon you won't have time to study. I'll beat the crap out of you, and I don't want to hear about your Paul anymore. I forbid you to see him. You heard me, didn't you? And this is not a joke. Jennifer, in tears, ran to her room and called Paul. Paul, crying, the girl said, My father forbade me to see you. I'm afraid he will forbid me to go to the institute. What should I do? I'll die without you. Maybe you're exaggerating. He doesn't know me at all. I'm sure if we get to know each other, he'll change his attitude towards me. He doesn't even want to hear about you. If you don't have any money, he's not interested in you. He only thinks about business. If he doesn't care about his own daughter's happiness, what about you? You have the right to decide who to date. It's the 21st century. Don't cry, my little girl. I'll think of something. We'll be together, I promise. Do you think we'll make it? Don't doubt it. I'll make sure not a single tear falls from your blue eyes." Paul didn't realize how simple and cruel it would be for his beloved's family to get rid of him. Well, time to get up. Paul jumped out of bed, did his exercises, took a shower, ate breakfast without appetite, and went to work, to the clinical hospital, where he worked for 10 years, realizing his childhood dream. Paul loved his job. There he was distracted, heavy memories flying out of his head. He was proud of each of his patients, experienced every failure, every tear of a terminally ill patient. "Paul?" The nurse at the administrative desk called out to him. "You're in line again this morning. I offered to see another doctor, but no, they say we want to see Paul. How do you have the strength to deal with them? Maybe you can advise them to go to another doctor." Paul just smiled back. "Good morning." He greeted the patients who were sitting, standing, walking along the corridor waiting for the appointment to start. "In 5 minutes you can come in." And Paul plunged headlong into work. There was no time for bitter thoughts, and he was glad of it. He deliberately stayed late to delay his return home, to his bachelor apartment, knowing that there in silence and solitude he would again be overcome by memories of the only one who still owned his heart. It was the surgical ward that saved the day. "Lara?" Paul turned to the nurse who was sitting with him in the waiting room. "Can you see if there's a big clue?" "Just a minute." The young nurse adored her doctor and felt sorry for him because he worked hard, looked out into the corridor, and reported. "Many more patients. What to do with them?" "Surgery called to remind you that you have 3 surgeries scheduled today." Yes, I remember." The man sighed regretfully. "We'll have to reschedule the appointment for tomorrow." "Paul, you can't work so much. You'll soon fall off your feet. What do they care?" "They don't realize, those sick people of yours, that you need to rest too. Why don't I talk to them and tell them to go to other doctors?" "It's okay, Lara. I can handle it." "Don't disappoint people. There's enough work for everyone." He smiled sadly and left the office. "I beg your pardon." He turned to the patients. "The appointment is over. Come back tomorrow. I have to go to surgery." No one objected. They all understood that their doctor works more than anyone else, does not refuse to help anyone. Paul performed the operation and sat down with relief on the sofa in the resident's room to rest from a busy day of work. His eyes were closing from fatigue, with the whole night ahead of him. "Would you sleep?" The duty nurse sympathetically suggested. "I'll wake you up if a heavy patient is brought in." "No." Paul said no. "I'll rest a bit now, then I'll have a coffee." He couldn't admit that he was afraid to close his eyes and go back to sleep. He sat for a while, then took up his assignment, rereading the case histories, making notes. "Paul." A nurse came into the resident's room. "You are urgently called to the operating room. Car accident, victims in serious condition. Multiple fractures, they say." Paul quickly went to the operating room, changed his clothes, and saw a gurney with a young woman lying on it. Her entire body and face were covered in blood. With the trained eye of a professional, he identified the most affected areas of the body and ordered, "Anesthesia. Let's do the fractures first." For several hours, Paul worked without looking at the face of the heavy patient. Finally, the operation ended, and the man tiredly said, addressing the operated woman, knowing that under the influence of anesthesia, she still will not hear anything. "Well, that's it, honey. The worst is over. You'll be running in no time. Doctor, can we take the patient away?" The nurse looked at him questioningly. "Yes, we can." Paul suddenly stopped at half a word. The face of the victim seemed painfully familiar to him. He leaned over her, scrutinizing the familiar features. "Jennifer?" It was only now that he suddenly recognized his Jennifer, his beloved, the one he kept seeing in his dreams. "How did you get here? What happened to you?" He, not believing his eyes, gazed into the lovely face, caressed her gaze, and his poor tortured heart filled with warmth. "How is it? Who has crippled you so? Do you know what happened to her?" "Paul, is she an acquaintance of yours?" "Yes, we started medical school together. It's good that you recognized her. The cops have been searching for her acquaintances. The woman came to us without papers. Are we taking her in?" Cautiously asked the nurses, realizing that for their doctor, this woman is someone more than just a patient. "Yes, yes." Paul woke up from his musings. "Bring her in. I'll be right with you. I'll keep an eye on her until she wakes up. Make sure she's out of anesthesia in time." "Paul, but your shift is over." "Go home, we'll keep an eye on her. Don't worry. You've been on your feet since morning. If anything happens, we'll call you." "Nothing, I'll sleep until she's out of anesthesia. I'll have time to rest." He dozed in the chair next to the woman's bed. From time to time, he opened his eyes and checked the patient's condition. It was past midnight when the woman opened her eyes and whispered, barely loosening her parched lips, "Thirsty. I'm thirsty." Paul immediately woke up, jumped up, leaned over her, and blotted her lips with a damp napkin. "Be patient. You can't drink yet." Jennifer turned her head with difficulty and saw Paul and cried out softly, "Paul, is that you?" "Where am I? Am I in heaven?" "I'm Jennifer, it's me." "You're in the hospital. They brought you here after the accident. I operated on you. You have several fractures and a mild concussion. You'll be fine soon. Tell me, do you remember what happened to you?" "Vaguely," Jennifer answered. "I jumped out of the apartment because someone broke in. I got really scared, broke a vase over the person's head, broke free and ran out onto the road, and then I got hit by a car. I don't remember how I got here. Passers-by called an ambulance. It's a small town, but people are kind. They won't leave you without help. You get some sleep and I'll stay with you." "Paul," the woman looked at him affectionately, "I am so glad to see you. Tell me, how have you been living all this time? We'll talk tomorrow. You'd better sleep now, and I should rest. There's a reception in the morning. Now we'll have plenty of time to talk. Sleep, don't think about anything. Sleep is your best medicine now." Jennifer obediently fell asleep. Paul sat beside her bed until morning, guarding the sleep of his precious patient. But as soon as he closed his eyelids, a helpful memory brought him back 10 years. "Jennifer?" Looking earnestly into the eyes of his beloved, Paul asked, "Do you really love me?" "Of course I do. Why do you ask?" "Let's sign tomorrow, and not tell anyone, just then put before the fact. Will you marry me? Without scaring your father?" "Paul, I'm not afraid of anything with you." "I agreed to be your wife. Then tomorrow, right after the lectures, let's go to register the marriage. Don't forget your passport." The young man kissed his beloved firmly. He looked into her eyes, seeing in them the reflection of his love. "Everything will work out. Do you believe me?" "I do. You're our one and only for life." But the next day, Paul waited in vain for Jennifer at the entrance to the and then they're off on their honeymoon right away. "You won't see her again. You're no match for my daughter. But Jennifer and I, we love each other." The young man cried out in despair, "You have no right to decide who she should marry. This is a free country." "I do, on the grounds that I'm her father and I know best what she needs. And you, puppy, if you come near my house again, you will be punished. Your loved ones could get hurt. You don't want your parents to accidentally get hit by a car or attacked by a psycho, do you?" Seeing the horror in the boy's eyes, the man laughed, satisfied with the effect. "Believe me, Jennifer made the decision to marry the man I recommended to her. She is an intelligent and obedient daughter. My arguments convinced her to make the right choice. So go home, study in peace, and forget her. Pretend nothing happened between you. You're lying to me. I want Jennifer to tell me herself. She doesn't want to talk to you. Forget her. Forget the road to our house. You're not going to succeed. You're not going to ruin my plans. Trust me, I can be persuasive. Get out of here and remember my warning. You've seen my guards, haven't you? Every one of those tough guys will be ready to do my bidding. Get out before I give them the go-ahead." Paul, amazed by Jennifer's father's statement, stood for a long time in front of the closed gate, then wandered away. He felt so dreary that he wanted to howl like a wolf. The young man felt as if his heart had been ripped out of him. His parents were worried about their son, but they could not help him. "My son," the mother was worried. "What happened? Tell me. Your father and I will try to help you. She left me. She decided to marry a rich man." "I don't believe it," father said. "Jennifer is not like that. She was forced, maybe even intimidated. Those rich people are like that. Paul, she loves you. Everything will work out. All we have to do is talk to her, then everything will be clear. I'm forbidden to go to their house." Paul would lie in bed for hours, staring aimlessly at the ceiling. If it was just about him and Jennifer, he would have broken the ban without hesitation. He could get to his beloved, and then they would definitely get married, but he was afraid for his parents' lives. The young man said nothing to his father and mother about the threats. Several months passed. At the end of the day, Paul came to visit Jennifer again. "How are you feeling? Any headaches?" "It hurts, but it's tolerable," the woman replied, eagerly gazing at the familiar face of the man she had thought about all these years. "Paul, you must have cursed me for abandoning you." "No, what are you?" The man sat down next to the patient, took her hand in his. "All this time I was tormented by only one question. Why did you consent to marry another?" Brought up in love, he did not imagine that a father could sacrifice his daughter's happiness to achieve his own selfish goals. "Dad overheard you and me talking. Remember when we dreamed of getting married in secret? I didn't realize he was standing outside the door. That's when he decided to marry me off quickly to Jacob, whom I hardly knew." And Jennifer told the astonished Paul the story of her hasty marriage. He listened, and in his soul rose a wave of hatred and misunderstanding for the father who, without thinking, crossed out all the dreams of his daughter. "So that's what you're up to with your beggar." The father spoke angrily, bursting into his daughter's room. He took the phone from her and threw it at the wall, the shards flying in different directions. "You're going against my will?" "Okay, I was trying to be nice, but I guess you don't understand normal language. Then I'll tell you in detail what will happen if you disobey me. If you go to marry him tomorrow, in a week or so your fiancé will be found in some wasteland. I was coming home late at night. Some thugs beat me up and robbed me. And the bandits beat the guy so badly that he didn't survive. The criminals, of course, will not be found. You attend the funeral, you mourn your loved one, and then you do as I say. It is in your power to remove the unnecessary link, the death of the groom, from everything that can happen. Just at once, agree with me. Have I made myself clear? It's up to you to decide whether your Paul will stay alive or the only son of his parents will die at the hands of unknown bandits." And he left the room without another word. Jennifer sat motionless for a long time, stunned by her father's words. The girl did not doubt for a moment that her father would carry out his threats. I can't let Paul die. I would rather marry Jacob than know that my beloved is alive. She curled up under the blanket, turned out the light, and closed her eyes. Hot tears burned her cheeks. Her imagination pictured a smiling Paul, and she lay awake until morning. It seemed to her that her soul had died that night. She didn't care what happened next. "Papa," indifferently she announced in the morning, "I agreed to marry Jacob." "That's a good girl." "Good decision," smiled satisfied father. "Believe me, you won't regret it. I love you. You are my only daughter. I'm doing all this just for you. Mark my words, you'll thank me. What kind of future would you have with this Paul? He doesn't know anything about business. My dream is for my business to continue. Only Jacob can do that. You are a woman. You should have a reliable partner. If you can love him in time, fine, but know well, 1,000 couples live without love, and it's fine. But you won't have money problems. A week later, I met my fiancé, and a month later, I got married. Jacob, the son of my father's companion. At first, I even liked him, handsome, intelligent, but then it turned out that he was a spoiled to the bone, young egoist. You don't know how I lived." Jennifer looked at Paul anguishedly. Husband was going left and right, bringing women into the house. Bastard, gritted his teeth, the man. He despised me, abused me, and soon it turned out that he was also a gambler. He could lose a lot of money in a night. Sometimes, of course, that won. In such moments, he became kind, attentive, apologized for wild antics, but it was rare. Jennifer did not tell her that her husband even condescended to talk to her and honored her with the great favor of coming into the bedroom at night. "And you forgave? Where was I to go?" She was quiet. He was real when he lost, came drunk and beat me, took it out on me, even though he was wasting my money. "What about Dad? Didn't he know what kind of monster he married you to?" "Father?" Jennifer grinned crookedly. Once I dared to tell him about my husband's affairs, and the answer killed me. He said there was no need to speak ill of Jacob. I meet him every day at the office, a very decent young man and a talented businessman. I've already made him my deputy, and you, instead of complaining about your husband, it's high time you gave birth and took care of my grandchildren. You're suffering from idleness, so you're making things up. If he's punishing you, it means he's angry that you didn't give birth to an heir. Every man dreams of that. Think about it. I don't understand. He's your father. How can you not trust your own daughter's word? Is he blind? I soon realized that I would never get out of this swamp of malice, lies, and deceit. I would have to suffer until the day I died. I almost accepted my unenviable position, learned to ignore the beatings, did not react to insults. I'm sorry, but I have to ask, do you have children? No, and I'm very glad I do. A child would have made my life even more difficult. Where's your father? How did you even end up here? After 5 years of marriage, my dad died. I was glad I could finally breathe free and divorce my hated husband, but no such luck. Dad made a will that left the business to Jacob. Even from beyond the grave, my father gave me no hope of finding my own happiness, not an imposed one. Had he lost his mind? Exclaimed the astonished Paul. Leave the business to a stranger? Yes, on the condition that Jacob remained my husband. He's made us dependent on each other, and each of us would like to break those ties. But, so he's condemning you to a life sentence? Yes, and the worst part was that Jacob didn't like that prospect. He was not going to divorce me, because then he would lose the source of income and the opportunity to play, and he every time for this needed more and more money. He had a permanent mistress by then, and I was in his way. He had to reckon with me, and that's when they decided to get rid of me. And you're so calm about this. You should have turned him in to the police. What was he going to do to you? Organize an accident. With a wife and no wife, he had nothing to do with it. They've calculated everything, even organized a 100% alibi. You can't dig it. But their plans didn't come true. The husband was diagnosed with a tumor, an incurable disease that left him no chance of survival. They didn't have time to carry out their devious plan. The fate of fate has come back to haunt him. You know, I felt sorry for him, and he mocked me to the last, as if he was taking revenge for the fact that he was dying and I was staying. So you're free now? Free. Jennifer smiled. I sold the house. I didn't want it to be a reminder of a failed family life. There was too much pain associated with it. I decided to start my life anew. I bought a ticket to the first city I could find, away from where I was unhappy, and here I met you. Isn't that a miracle? Remember when I said we'd be together? I believed that someday we would meet. Paul, do you still have any feelings for me? My little one, I never stopped loving you. All 10 years in a dream lived our brief meeting. Now rest, you're tired. Paul carefully adjusted the blanket, ran his palm through his hair and cheek, leaned over and kissed his beloved. We'll have time to talk more. I'll come to you tomorrow. In the morning, the woman felt much better. Get up, lazybones, Paul said cheerfully, entering the room. You have a visitor waiting for you. He helped the intrigued Jennifer to wash and comb her hair and opened the door to the corridor. With a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a bag of oranges in the other, the very guy who had caused the woman to get hit by the car stepped into the room. She didn't recognize him, of course, but he had contacted the agency and found her. Hello. The guy didn't have the courage to say hello. I had a hard time tracking you down to apologize for the intrusion. I'm not a bandit. I'm the grandson of the old lady you rented the apartment from. Why'd you break in? She hasn't lived there in years. I didn't know she'd moved out and rented the apartment. I wanted to visit her. I had the keys, but I thought she was home. That's why I knocked first. I thought she was ill. She didn't answer the door. I used the key and got a kick in the head from you. Sorry, I had to defend myself. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. How are you feeling? I know you were hit by a car, so I feel vicariously guilty for scaring you. I'm feeling much better now. Feel better. The young man, embarrassed, handed Jennifer flowers and fruit. Again, I'm sorry. I'm leaving so you can safely return to the apartment. I don't think that will be necessary. Paul interrupted him, looking at the woman affectionately. After waiting for the visitor to leave, the man leaned over and kissed Jennifer soundly. She wrapped her arms around his neck. Are you crying? Asked Paul, feeling the salty tears on his beloved's cheeks. I've longed to kiss you again for so long. Don't cry. You are safe now. I'm here for you and I won't let anyone else hurt you. We can still be happy, can't we? Don't doubt it. We have our whole lives ahead of us. I love you. Will you be my wife? Yes. Jennifer exhaled. Paul took out a box from the pocket of his robe, opened it, and the woman saw on a velvet cushion a wedding ring. I bought this ring 10 years ago. I earned the money myself. I didn't ask my parents for it. I've kept it all these years, believing that one day I would be able to put it on your finger. He gently took Jennifer's hand and put the ring on. Thank you, the woman cried. It was worth it to endure all the trials to call you my husband today. You're not going back to your rented apartment. I'm taking you back to mine, and I'll never let you go again. Paul leaned over to his beloved and kissed her, holding her gently to his chest. "You are my life, my joy," he said, kissing her. "All the treasures in the world pale before your beauty." Jennifer clung to Paul and could not believe that it was not a dream, that he was alive, her most adored man. In the spacious and bright corridor of the clinic walked a gray-haired elderly man with a neatly trimmed beard and a lush mustache. He was looking into the rooms, talking to the patients, a smile on his face. "Paul?" A young nurse hurried towards him. "They've brought a heavy patient in again. They said you're the only one who can help him. What do we do with these patients? They don't realize that you need to rest sometimes. Thank you, Cindy. I'll be right with you. Tell him to prep for surgery." Paul went into the office. At the desk sat a pretty old woman, passionately engaged in work. Noticing the entrant, she broke away from the computer monitor, smiled, and said, "Who are you going to save again?" "I have to," sighed the man, approaching the table. "They won't let me retire." "What are you talking about?" The woman splashed her hands. "What retirement? You and I still have children to raise, and grandchildren will need help." The man took a framed photograph from the table. 4 pairs of huge blue eyes looked at him. He leaned over to the woman and kissed her. "Thank you, Jennifer, for the children. I had already resigned myself to the fact that I would die childless, and then you gave me such happiness, 2 sons and 2 daughters. The girls look just like you, blonde like you. This is our happiness." Jennifer pressed against her husband. "I like to give you presents." "Yes," exclaimed the man. "The clinic alone, what's it worth? It's our baby. I'm glad we put my father's money into building this hospital. Our dream to help people has come true. We're together, and that's what matters. I love you. I'll keep saying those words until my last breath. And I love you. You, my joy and my happiness."